Some songs wait. They are written, recorded, released into the world, and they land without particular force. Decent recordings, appreciated by those who hear them, noticed but not felt. They exist in the catalog of their era without finding the specific voice that was always waiting to inhabit them. They wait, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades, for the person who will bring to them the exact emotional content they were always designed to carry. You Don't Know Me waited 7 years. Cindy Walker wrote it in 1955. She was one of the most gifted songwriters in country music, a woman who had built a career writing songs for other people, who understood the specific architecture of what makes a lyric reach inside a listener and find something true. The song she wrote was, on its surface, simple. A narrator who loves someone who does not know it, who has kept the feeling hidden, who watches the object of their love move through the world unaware of what is being felt in their direction. It was a song about the specific loneliness of unexpressed love, about caring for someone so completely that the caring itself becomes a form of isolation. Eddie Arnold recorded it in 1956. It was a good recording, clean, professional, emotionally present in the competent way of a skilled performer working with good material. It reached the country charts. People heard it and liked it. And then it settled into the middle distance of the era's catalog, neither forgotten nor fully remembered, waiting without knowing it was waiting. In 1962, Ray Charles heard it. What happened when Ray Charles heard You Don't Know Me? What he recognized in it? What he brought to it? Why he chose it for an album that was already one of the most audacious artistic decisions of his career? Is the story this narrative has been building toward. But to understand what the song became in his hands, you have to understand what the song was really about. And what it was really about was not romantic love. Or rather, it was about romantic love the way that all of Ray Charles's music was about things that were also other things. The surface was a love song. Underneath the surface was something that Ray Charles had been living since he was 7 years old, and the world had gone dark. 2. Pert Onani. Nalisi Wailu Dalarada. Cindy Walker was born in 1918 in Mart, Texas. She wrote her first hit at 19 and spent the next 5 decades producing songs that other artists turned into careers. In Nashville's songwriting community, she was a figure of rare respect, not famous in the way that performers are famous, but known among the people who understood what songwriting actually required as someone who understood it completely. She wrote for Bob Wills, for Ernest Tubb, for Eddie Arnold, for dozens of the era's most significant country artists. She wrote hundreds of songs, most of which became someone else's success, which is the specific condition of the professional songwriter. The work belongs to you in the writing and to everyone else in the living. You Don't Know Me came from a specific emotional territory that Walker had been exploring in her writing, the interior experience of love that cannot be expressed, that has no outlet, that exists completely in the private space of one person's feeling without ever being communicated to the person who inspired it. She understood this territory the way a songwriter understands the territory they write best, not necessarily from biographical experience, but from the particular quality of attention to human experience that makes someone able to write about what they have observed and imagined with the same accuracy as what they have lived. The song she wrote was built around a particular kind of internal experience, the experience of being fully present to someone, of knowing them, their moods, their movements, the specific way they exist in a room, while being entirely invisible to them in return, of loving someone who has never registered the depth of what you feel, of carrying a connection that exists, completely and achingly in only one direction. The lyric she wrote was precise and restrained. It did not dramatize the feeling or exaggerate it or ask for sympathy on behalf of the narrator. It simply documented it with the specific economy of someone who trusts the feeling to carry itself without amplification. The words said exactly what they meant and no more. I know your lips. I know your smile. I know your touch. I know the way you move. I know everything about you. But you don't know me. The song's emotional architecture was built on that gap. Between knowing and being known, between what is felt and what is communicated, between the person who sees and the person who does not know they are being seen. It was, in the most direct sense, a song about invisibility, about being fully present to someone who cannot see you at all. When Eddie Arnold recorded it in 1956, he brought to it the emotional vocabulary of country music's romantic tradition. The clean delivery, the unambiguous sentiment, the specific way that country music of that era communicated feeling through directness and understatement. His version was true to the lyric. It was not untrue to the feeling, but it was the feeling of a person who had experienced romantic invisibility, the specific, common, entirely human experience of loving someone who does not return the love. It was a good version of a love song. It was not yet what the song was capable of being. 2-part TW. Wairala Shiard. Ray Charles was 31 years old when he recorded You Don't Know Me for Modern Sounds in Country and Western Music. He had been blind for 24 years. He had built his entire relationship with the world, every relationship, professional and personal, every navigation of every space he had ever occupied, through a form of attention that most people never need to develop because the visual information they receive constantly makes it unnecessary. He knew things about the people around him that they did not know he knew. He heard the hesitation in a voice before the voice reached its point. He heard the change in a person's breathing when something shifted in them emotionally. He heard the specific way a musician's posture changed when they were uncertain about a passage. Heard it in the subtle shift of their sound, in the almost imperceptible tightening of the tone. He heard, in the acoustic texture of a room, information about how many people were in it and where they were positioned and what kind of attention they were paying. He knew, in the specific, non-visual, deeply accurate way that he knew everything, the people in his life in ways that they did not know they were being known. He had developed this capacity not through any exceptional gift for hearing in the physiological sense but through necessity, through 24 years of navigating a world that provided no visual information and required that he extract from sound everything that sighted people extracted from a combination of sight and sound together. He was in the precise domain of knowing what was happening in a room and among the people in it, more completely informed than almost anyone around him. He saw more, in the only sense that mattered for the essential understanding of human experience, than people who could see, and he moved through the world entirely unseen, in the most fundamental sense. Not invisible in the social sense, Ray Charles was one of the most recognized figures in American popular music by 1962, but unseen in a more basic and more irreducible way. The people around him could not know, from looking at him, what he was processing, could not see his eyes moving to track something, could not see the quality of his attention directed at them or away from them, could not read in his face what sighted people read in each other's faces constantly, the continuous involuntary communication of where attention is and what it is doing. The inner life of Ray Charles was, by the nature of his blindness, more interior than the inner life of anyone around him, held closer, communicated less automatically, shared only through the deliberate choice to share it, and through the music that was, always, his primary medium for making what was inside him visible to the world outside. He knew people completely. He was known by almost no one in the same way. The gap between what he perceived and what others perceived about him was not a small gap. It was the fundamental condition of his existence. A permanent asymmetry between what he took in and what he gave back, between the completeness of his attention to the world and the incompleteness of the world's attention to him. When he heard "You Don't Know Me," he heard not a love song but a description of his own fundamental experience of being in the world, the gap between knowing and being known. The presence that is not perceived. The complete attention that moves through the world without anyone around it understanding what it is seeing, what it is holding, how much it has accumulated. The song was not about romantic love for Ray Charles, it was about blindness, about what it meant to know the world without the world knowing you back in the same terms. About the specific, unremarkable, permanent condition of being present to everything and invisible in the way that matters most. He chose the song for the album, and then he did something that changed what the song was. The session for "You Don't Know Me" took place during the Modern Sounds recording period in late 1961. The orchestral arrangement had been prepared, strings, the specific warm sonic environment that Ray Charles had designed for the album, and the musicians were in place. Ray Charles knew the song completely, had been carrying it in his memory with the precision he applied to everything he intended to record, had rehearsed his interpretation internally until the interpretation was settled. But what happened in the actual take was not what anyone in the room had fully anticipated. The song in Ray Charles's vocal performance was not a love song. It retained all the lyric surface content, the knowing of the other person, the hiddenness of the feeling, the specific ache of the gap. But the emotional register underneath the lyric was different from anything a love song required. It was older than romantic love. It was the register of someone who has been navigating the world through a form of attention that the world around them does not and cannot fully perceive. Who has been knowing and being incompletely known for so long that the condition has become simply the texture of existence. His voice on the song had a quality that musicians who were present at the session described afterward in various ways, all of them reaching for the same thing without quite finding the precise language for it. It sounded, several of them said, like the song had been written for him. Not in the sense of biographical fit, though the fit was extraordinary. In the sense that the specific emotional territory the song was exploring was territory that Ray Charles knew with an intimacy and a depth that made the song sound in his voice as though it was being said for the first time rather than sung. This is the rarest thing a vocal performance can achieve. The sense that the singer is not interpreting a song but inhabiting it, that the emotional content of the lyric and the emotional content of the singer's actual experience are the same content, expressed simultaneously. that there is no gap between the feeling and the sound. There is almost never no gap. The gap is what performance is. An artist closes the gap as much as possible, uses technique and intelligence and emotional intelligence to make the gap small enough that the listener cannot see it. Ray Charles closed the gap entirely on You Don't Know Me because there was no gap to close. The song was already his. It had been his since before he heard it. He simply had to sing it. The take was complete. The engineer asked, as he always did, whether Ray Charles wanted another. Ray Charles said, "No powerful yours." No Ite San Become and You Don't Know Me was released as a single from Modern Sounds in Country and Western Music in the summer of 1962. It reached number 2 on the pop charts and number 1 on the adult contemporary chart. It was played on radio stations that had never played a Ray Charles record and on stations that played nothing else. It reached people who identified with the love song on the surface and people who heard something deeper underneath the surface without being able to name what it was. The critical response to the recording noted consistently that something in Ray Charles's performance of the song exceeded what the song seemed to require. Critics who knew the Eddie Arnold original and heard the Ray Charles version wrote about the difference in terms that were all circling the same observation: that Ray Charles was not performing the song's emotion, he was producing it, that whatever the song was about on its surface, the voice singing it was carrying something additional, something that did not come from the lyric and could not be located in the arrangement, something that was simply present in the sound itself. This quality, the presence of something in the voice that exceeds what the song asks for, that carries the weight of experience beyond the specific experience the lyric describes, is the quality that makes Ray Charles recordings survive the context that produced them. They are not documents of their era. They are not artifacts of a genre or a period or a commercial calculation. They are recordings of a specific human being's actual emotional life, given sound through a specific human being's actual voice, in the specific moment when the song and the singer were so completely matched that the music could carry everything the singer actually knew. You Don't Know Me, in Ray Charles's recording, became a song about more than it said. The people who heard it and felt it most deeply were not, predominantly, people who had unrequited love in the conventional sense. They were people who knew the feeling of being fully present to the world around them while being incompletely seen by it. People who carried more than they were able to communicate. People for whom the gap between knowing and being known was a permanent feature of their interior landscape. This was not the song Cindy Walker had written. It was what the song became when the right voice sang it. And the right voice had been waiting 24 years to find it. Coupert F5E. Fullergiard Cindy Walker lived until 2006. She heard Ray Charles's version of You Don't Know Me in 1962 when it was released, and its effect on her, on the songwriter who had written the song and had heard it recorded competently by Eddie Arnold and had watched it settle into the mid-range of its era's catalog, was, by her own later account, one of the most significant experiences of her professional life. She said in an interview from the 1990s that she had not known what the song was about until she heard Ray Charles sing it. She had written it as a love song, had understood it as a love song, had heard Eddie Arnold's version and recognized it as a truthful and faithful recording of what she had written. And then Ray Charles had sung it, and she had understood for the first time that the song was about something larger than romantic love. She did not specify what that larger thing was. She did not need to. The people who have heard Ray Charles's recording of You Don't Know Me in the 6 decades since its release have understood it in their own terms, each of them finding in it the specific version of the feeling that matches their own specific experience of being fully present to something that cannot fully perceive them. This is what the best songs do. Not the best songs in the sense of the most successful or the most celebrated, but the best songs in the true sense, the songs that say something that is simultaneously specific to their origin and universal in their reach, the songs that come from one person's particular experience and land with equal accuracy, in the particular experience of every person who hears them. You Don't Know Me came from Cindy Walker's understanding of what it felt like to love someone who did not know it. It became, in Ray Charles's voice, something that could carry the weight of 24 years of navigating the world without the ability to be seen in the way that the world sees. It became, for everyone who heard it and felt it as their own, whatever specific version of that gap between knowing and being known they had been living with. The song had waited 7 years for the right voice. When the right voice found it, the song became permanent. And permanent songs do not belong to their era or their genre or their origin. They belong to everyone who finds in them what they have always needed to hear someone say. 2 easy times Cindy Walker is in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. You Don't Know Me has been recorded by hundreds of artists since 1955, by Elvis Presley, by Willie Nelson, by Michael Bublé, by dozens of artists in dozens of genres across 7 decades. Each version has brought something to the song. None of them has brought what Ray Charles brought. Not because Ray Charles was a greater performer than all those artists, though the argument could be made. Because the song in Ray Charles's voice was not being performed. It was being recognized. It was a man encountering a piece of language that described his own experience of the world with an accuracy that he had never encountered before in a lyric, and singing it the way you sing something that is already yours. The gap between knowing and being known. The presence that moves through the world unseen. The complete, private, relentless attention that the blind man brought to everything around him, and the equally complete invisibility of that attention to the people being attended to. That is what You Don't Know Me is about. That is what it has always been about. Cindy Walker wrote it in 1955 without fully knowing it. Eddie Arnold sang it in 1956 as a love song. Ray Charles sang it in 1962 as the truth of his own life, and the world heard it not as Ray Charles's truth specifically, but as their own. Because the most personal things, when they are expressed with complete accuracy, are also the most universal. Because the specific and the general are not opposites. Because a blind man singing about being unseen is also every person who has ever carried more than they could communicate, who has ever known someone more completely than they were known in return, who has ever moved through a room full of people feeling simultaneously more present and more invisible than anyone around them understood. That is the gift Ray Charles gave to a song that was waiting for him. That is the gift the song gives still to everyone who hears it. You don't know me, but the song does.